Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Councilmember Robin Wansley and I am the chair of the Climate and Infrastructure Committee. I am going to call to order our regular meeting for today, Thursday, April 30th, 2026. But before beginning the meeting, I do want to offer a friendly reminder to all committee members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask that all speakers moderate the speed and clarity of their comments with that in mind. At this time, I will ask the clerks to call a roll so that we can verify we have quorum for this meeting.
Councilmember Vita.
Present.
Warren is absent. Chugtai.
Present.
Chowdhury is absent. Palmsana.
Present.
Vice Chair Stevenson.
Present.
Chair Wansley.
Present.
We have 5 present.
Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum. I'll also note for the record that Councilmember Warren did email me ahead of this committee informing me that they would not be attending. That said, I'll remind my colleagues that we will be using speaker management to just facilitate our meeting today. And if you need any support with getting access to that, please make sure to follow up with our clerks over there. I'll also remind committee members and the public that we're currently preparing our work plan priorities for climate and infrastructure for this term. And at our April 16th meeting, Vice Chair Stevenson and I presented a brief overview and history for committee work plans and invited council members to submit their priorities for this committee. And the deadline for that will be end of day Friday, May 22nd. I anticipate that we'll be finalizing said work plan by the end of June, specifically June 18th. So please send over your work plan priorities. And for the members of the public that are here for one of the public hearings, if you wish to address the committee, we ask that you please register with our clerks over to the right. You can also provide written comments or materials to include in the public record with them as well. Public Works staff will also be available after each presentation to connect with if you have any questions or concerns. And with that, our agenda is in front of us, and we will begin with consent agenda item reflected as items 3 through 9 on our agenda. So item 3 and 4 are accepting Minnesota Pollution Control Agency planning grants for North and East Minneapolis flood mitigation projects feasibility evaluation, respectively. Number 5 is a resolution related to gift acceptance from the National Association of City Transportation Officials. Number 6 is accepting a low bid for 26th Street East and Hiawatha Avenue Safety Improvement Project. Number 7 is accepting a low bid for Whittier Safe Routes to School Phase 2 project. Number 8 is accepting a low bid for the construction of the Nicollet Ave irrigation system. And item 9 is rescheduling a public hearing for Loring Park resurfacing project from June 4th to May 14th. And notices were sent out for this listing to note the schedule change from June 4th to May 14th to ensure that all members of the public have the opportunity to speak at that public hearing. And I'll be opening it on May 14th and then continuing the public hearing to June 4th. Specifically, and staff will be also available to speak with any residents who have concerns or questions about that project. And colleagues, with that, I will see if there's any discussions or questions on any of the items here. Also, I'll note that we've been joined by Councilmember Chowdhury as well. Take a look at the queue. All right. Not seeing any items pulled for discussion or any questions. I'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. All right. The ayes have it and that motion carries. Next, we'll take up our public hearings reflected as items 1 and 2 on the agenda. Again, anybody who has signed up for these items will be given 2 minutes each to testify. And again, if you have not registered, please do so with our clerk staff right here to the right. I'll also add that we have staff present who can meet in the room or in the hallway if anyone have questions about their specific assessments. Also, for everyone in attendance, and especially those who may participate in our hearings or comment period, let me offer this notice. These hearings are being recorded and broadcast. Both the recording and broadcast are classified as public data under the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act. By attending and participating in these proceedings, your image and any testimony or information that you provide will be subject to disclosure under that law. That includes, but it's not limited to, your attendance, your name, and other personal details you provide, as well as your testimonies or comments that you share, as well as any written submissions that you've made. Those all will be included in the record of this meeting. Our first public hearing is for the 27th Avenue Northeast resurfacing project, and I'll invite up Tracy Lindgren. Awesome. Principal Professional Engineer with our Public Works Department to begin the presentation before our public hearing. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair and members of the Climate and Infrastructure Committee. My name is Tracy Lindgren, and I am a Principal Professional Engineer with Public Works. I am here to present to you the public hearing for the 27th Avenue Northeast resurfacing project and recommend passage of resolution adopting special assessments in the amount of $263,222.71 for the 27th Avenue Northeast resurfacing project, and passage of resolution requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation authorize the city's issuance and sale of assessment bonds in the amount of $263,222.71 for the project. 27th Avenue Northeast is a Minnesota state aid route between Marshall Street Northeast and University Avenue Northeast. This street was reconstructed in 1973 and has a pavement condition index of 58. The scope of this resurfacing project is a 1 and 2 inch asphalt overlay. 14 pedestrian ramps are currently in process of being upgraded before the street resurfacing project. Public Works hosted a virtual information meeting on Tuesday, April 21st at 6 p.m. There were 42 invitations mailed and 1 attendee came to this meeting. A mailing was sent out before the pedestrian ramp upgrades to the properties along the project, and a separate mailing was completed inviting them to the informational meeting and this public hearing. An additional mailing will be completed before the mill and overlay takes place, closer to the time of work. The funding breakdown for this project is as follows. Special assessments total $263,222.71. Levy-funded debt totals equal $53,897. Minnesota state aid funds total $60,000, with a total project cost of $377,120. On February 5th, 2026, the City Council designated the improvements proposed to the 2026 street resurfacing program. The purpose of the asphalt pavement resurfacing program is to extend the life of some city streets which are not scheduled for any preventative maintenance, renovation, or reconstruction in the foreseeable future. This resurfacing program is addressing city streets that are at a point in their life cycle where a new surface will extend the street's life, improve ride quality and neighborhood livability, and help slow the overall deterioration of our city street system. The proposed street resurfacing special assessments were determined by applying the 2026 uniform assessment rate to the land area of benefited parcels located between the street influence zone along the improved street. Information has been provided in the notices as to how persons may prepay the special assessments in full without interest if they so choose. City Council has passed resolutions whereby a deferment of special assessments may be obtained by showing hardship for any homestead property owned by a person 65 years of age or older, retired by virtue of permanent and total disability, or military personnel ordered to active military service. This concludes my presentation, and I am available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I will reserve any questions from council members after we get through the public hearing, which I will now open. And
Madam
just
Chair,
want-
we have no members of the public signed up for this public hearing.
Awesome. Thank you for that update. I'll make just another announcement in case there's anyone here in the overflow room who would like to speak to this particular assessment. You can do so by coming to register. Not seeing no one sprinting down the hall and seeing no one else wishing to speak. I will now close this public hearing. Oh, sorry. Just want to know, is it related to the 27th Avenue Northeast resurfacing project? Okay, would you like to work with the clerks? Well, first come and speak and share your name, and then we can have you register with the clerks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Who do I talk to over here?
You can start now.
I'm sorry, what was that? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Welcome. All right, I'm sorry. I will open the public hearing back up.
Sorry about that.
And please feel free to start.
Okay, so regarding this road resurfacing, the reason 27th Avenue Northeast would need resurfacing is due to the high volume of extremely heavy freight trucks using it to access trucking businesses on 27th Avenue Northeast and on University Avenue. Historically, 27th Avenue Northeast has not been a designated truck route, nor is it shown to be a truck route on the City of Minneapolis truck route map. The last I saw that was updated on April 14th of 2026. So designated truck routes as outlined on the City of Minneapolis truck route map include University Avenue, Lowry Avenue, and Marshall Street. Thus, trucks need to enter only the east end of 27th Avenue Northeast up to the railroad and not proceed through to the west end of 27th Avenue Northeast for either entrance to or exit from the trucking businesses on the east end of 27th. In the past, there was signage posted along 27th Avenue Northeast stating it was not a truck route, but this is no longer present, so the resident homeowners would like to know why this was removed. If it was due to 27th Avenue Northeast receiving any state funding, my research showed that this does not automatically qualify the street for use as a designated truck route, and that truck routes are determined by local authorities and MnDOT. My research also showed that there's a 10-ton per axle weight limit for 27th Avenue Northeast. I'm not sure if this is being monitored or enforced. And the City of Minneapolis website documents that the resurfacing project consists of replacing the top layer of asphalt pavement to extend the life of the street and is projected to last 10 years or more. I do have concern that with the current volume of freight trucks using all of 27th Avenue Northeast, the resurfacing project would most likely not last.
Sorry, yeah, we have to close or end.
Really?
2 minutes. We give everyone
Wow.
2 minutes, but
Well, let me
you
just
can.
say that I feel like,
Oh, I'm sorry. You can provide any written comments also to the clerks, and they will be provided to us as like a public record for us to review.
okay, so I can submit this in writing to
Yep,
you. Okay?
absolutely. If you want to go and register with the clerks right
Okay.
there, we can get that. Thanks. Is there anyone else here to speak to this item? I'll take a slightly longer pause. All right. Not seeing anyone, I will close the public hearing. Committee members, is there anyone wanting to get in queue to ask any questions regarding this matter? Check it. Oh, it's not working. Oh, it's weird. Speaker management, I see Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering, pursuant to the residents' questions, and it might be best a conversation taken offline, but this is one of the reasons why our street assessments are not the full portion, the entirety of the cost of a resurfacing or reconstruction. And I didn't know if maybe staff would want to just speak generally about why that's the case, or if you'd want to just visit with the resident who came to speak. I see Mr. Handelin stand up, and invite him to answer some of the concerns that he heard in the testimony.
Thank you. Welcome. Yep.
Thank you, Chair Wansley, Councilmember Palmisano. My name's Jeff Handelan. I'm a principal professional engineer who oversees the Office of Public Works Special Assessments. I'll just give a brief answer here, and then my staff and I are also available to follow up in the hall. That pavements projects are based on a uniform rate and method across the entire city, regardless of truck routes or traffic volumes, and regardless of the cost of the specific project. So property owners along truck routes or heavy traffic routes do not pay any more than other locations.
Thank you. I think that has helped me over the years really understand why we do our assessments the way that we do. We've looked at ways to be even more equitable, more fair as to how we approach this kind of work. Where we've kind of landed, at least for now, is that this sort of partial project assessment cost does seem the most equitable for property owners along a street or a road. And that's where we're at. I also want to mention, I'm sure otherwise you would, Chair Wansley, that perhaps the resident and the staff could just go out right now and kind of have that conversation about options. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Handelin.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, was going to also uplift. We do have staff here who can speak to any residents about their particular concerns or questions, and any prospective next actions that can be taken. So with that, I will actually move this item for approval. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and that motion carries. Our next public hearing is for the University Avenue Southeast and 4th Street Southeast reconstruction project, and I will invite up Beverly Warmka, the PE Senior Professional Engineer with our Public Works Department, to begin the presentation before our public hearing. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Beverly Warmka. I'm a Senior Professional Engineer with the Transportation Engineering and Design Division of Public Works. Today, I am here presenting for the public hearing for the University Avenue Southeast and 4th Street Southeast Central Avenue to 35W Cooperative Project, City Project 10124, CPV 074. The proposed MnDOT-led cooperative project consists of reconstructing University Avenue Southeast and 4th Street Southeast from Central Avenue to 35W. Elements to be included as part of the proposed project includes full removal of the existing roadway, new pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, bicycle facility, new pavement, new curb and gutter, new planted boulevards, street lighting, and utility improvements. The project will also include new signage and new pavement markings, and the total project cost is approximately $50 million. The city contribution to this cooperative project is about $10.3 million. The total street reconstruction assessment is $1,308,988.27. This is based on the 2026 Uniform Assessment Rates and the Influence Zone Area Method, which has a rate of $3.20 for non-residential properties and $1.12 for residential properties. These assessments are payable over a 20-year period. The rest of the city funding sources are $5.5 million in federal funding, $326,000 in levy-funded debt, $3.244,919 in sewer funding. City staff conducted a virtual pre-assessment meeting to provide an overview of the project and answer any questions related to the assessment method and process. This was held on April 23rd. 115 notices were mailed and 2 people attended. MnDOT also conducted numerous outreach and engagement opportunities, including 8 stakeholder meetings, 9 outreach events, and an online survey that received approximately 600 responses. The project was also received support from the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee and the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Today, Public Works is asking the City Council to pass resolutions adopting the special assessments, authorizing sale of the assessment bonds, and authorizing the abandonment and removal of areaways in conflict with the project. That concludes my presentation, and I will stand by for questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I will now open up this public hearing to see who has signed up. Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And the first individual we have is Richard. And I am sorry, I'm having challenges. Okay, if you could share your name for the record when you introduce yourself, that'd be
Hi,
great.
yes, my name is Richard Kenneman, and apologize, I haven't ever spoken one of these before, but members of the council, I just had a couple concerns with this project. For one, the sidewalk that they're talking about replacing on 4th Street was replaced not even 3 years ago by the Biden infrastructure bill. It was made ADA compliant. They dug up the whole thing, complete length of the road. So then to assess us, homeowners to pay for it to be redone again just seems kind of crazy. I also share concerns, which maybe that question's been answered a little bit, but 4th Street Southeast is the same thing. It's the huge trucks that rattle the windows of the houses and all that going on, and constantly, day and night. I would argue that wrecks the roads far more than regular street traffic, but again, kind of addressed. I was talking over here, it sounded like they said that they're not maybe gonna redo the sidewalk if it's already been redone, except for the fact that I also had someone reach out to me regarding the sort of right-of-way. There's a portion of like what the city owns that goes up and touches the property that exceeds the sidewalk even, and they talked about they're gonna have to remove my retaining wall that's over there, and just this whole thing. There was like someone that I had a long conversation with. So, on one hand, I'm hearing that they're not gonna remove the sidewalk if it was already replaced. On the other hand, I'm hearing that they need to not only remove the sidewalk, but also my retaining wall that goes up, past that. So those are the concerns I have. I have no issues with replacing a street if it needs to be replaced, but to replace stuff that was just replaced 3 years ago, I think is a colossal waste of money and resources. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for testifying. Next up, I have Leslie Jackson.
Thank you, Councilmember
welcome.
Chair and all the chairs. I have a question for the city public. I'm kind of confused because I've been sitting in these meetings, and I know my time is going, and I'm kind of wondering why you guys go and take the lead pipes out, I was told, before you come and do this resurfacing. So, and then you come back and do the resurfacing. How come everything isn't done at one time? And it's like, I'm moving the lead pipes, and now I have to go back in and reopen the soil, making it more convenient for the residents as well as the flow of traffic and whatever animals or whoever's going by. So I'm just curious of all this double work that's happening. And within this proposal, which I read on the item list, it's not including any removal of lead pipes. So I'm just wondering, is that a whole nother project? Is it a combined project, or is it separate things happening? I'm just confused. So if one of you guys could please explain how these projects are working with these entities of the streets being taken away and putting back together and then coming back and taking them again. So it's like the double the work, double the pleasure, and double the cost. So thank you, and with that, I'll yield back.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this item related to University Avenue Southeast and 4th Street Southeast? Last chance, or hold your peace. All right, with that, I am going to close this public hearing. We'll see if there's anyone in queue to refresh. Yeah, I will just put myself, speaker management is being slightly weird. Okay, if you're having challenges, please also use your name tag. Like me and Vice Chair Stevenson, who signed up several times. I will defer to Vice Chair Stevenson. Go afterwards.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone from Public Works could speak to the sidewalk issue brought up by the gentleman. Does anyone know about that?
Chair Wansley, Councilmember Stevenson, I believe I can reply generally to that and then follow up more if more information is needed. But generally speaking, we do try to program our different initiatives to be coordinated with each other, so that we most importantly try to avoid putting on a fresh, fully reconstructed street and then tearing it up later for utility work or like replacing the service lines. So sometimes that includes tearing up the street and doing some restoration that we need to do to maintain traffic until the full street paving project can come along. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the wrong question. I was mentally preparing for two questions. The question is about sidewalks, and the answer to that question is that sidewalk for street reconstruction projects, we replace sidewalks where as needed to match the design of the new street. But the good news is that street reconstruction projects do not assess any more or less based on the amount of sidewalk that the street reconstruction replaces. So any sidewalk assessments are one time. Paving projects, utility projects that replace sidewalk do not charge the residents any additional cost.
Okay, thank you. So for clarification, I think the concern was I believe it seemed that the sidewalk was already pulled up and that repaved, and now again there's a proposal with this project for doing something similar. Just wanted to make sure clarification. You're saying there should not be additional assessments related to that sidewalk onto the property owners.
Chair Wansley, that's correct. I could follow up on those additional details, but I think the most important point is what you just said. There's no additional assessment based on that work.
Great. And again, I will always uplift. Our staff are here to speak to anyone to get additional details and share those concerns directly with them. That said too, and I think we addressed this in the last meeting, I believe it was Director Sexton, but just wanting to clarify again, when we're talking about road or street resurfacing projects, that is very different than lead replacement. Those are completely separate. So this has nothing to do with those particular projects. So I just wanted to make sure we're inviting Director Sexton up to make sure I'm, articulating more clearly.
Yeah, Chair Wansley, Tim Sexton, Public Works Director. So there is a connection on some of these reconstruction projects, and that we try to coordinate work when there needs to be things like lead service line replaced. And so we always try to do that coordination. I will have to check offline about whether that's if or how many of those lead service lines might be replaced as part of this project. But while they're separate, we try to connect them as much as possible so that we limit the disruptions to the street and to the people living nearby.
Okay, great. If you could follow up with also the resident who spoke around that, and once you get some clarity on, for this particular project, what service lines would need to be replaced, that would be great.
Will do. Thank you, Chair.
Awesome. Seeing if there's anyone else in queue. Okay, well, with that, I will move approval of this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, the ayes. Sorry, anyone opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and that motion is approved and will be forwarded. Next item is a report related to the 2025 Zero Waste Funding Mechanism. This is item number 10. Specifically, the Zero Waste Funding Mechanism study, and staff has prepared a pretty robust presentation, and I'll now invite up Nicholas Gerald, the Director for Solid Waste and Recycling from our Public Works Department, to get us started. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Wansley and committee. Again, my name is Nick Gerald. I'm the Director of the Solid Waste and Recycling Division for Public Works. And I'm happy to have here today with me Allison and
Sorry,
Heather.
Director, if you could just speak a little bit more. Yeah, there we go.
Happy to have Allison and Heather here from Burns McDonnell. They'll do the presentation here shortly. But I wanted to give you a little background to where this came from and why this started. So the city had a commercial waste study completion in 2017 as a precursor to the development of the City Zero Waste Plan. The study was brought up the concept of a clean community fee as a possible funding mechanism to support citywide zero waste work. Over the years, our office has noted that the need for a sustainable funding source outside the Solid Waste and Recycling Enterprise Fund to develop zero waste projects and programs for commercial, multifamily, and industrial sectors to meet our citywide zero waste goals. So this is why we did this study. We were grateful to be provided the Climate Legacy Initiative funding in 2025, which allowed us to pay Burns McDonnell for the study. So I will turn it over to Allison from Burns McDonnell.
Welcome, Allison.
Good afternoon, Chair Wansley and committee members. In March 2025, Burns McDonnell was contracted by the City of Minneapolis to research sustainable funding mechanisms that may be used to support zero waste programming in the city. Today, we'll be walking through our research, key findings, and a potential pathway forward for the city's consideration. Next, oh, sorry, I forgot. Yeah. Sorry about that. We'll begin by first discussing the project purpose and approach, followed by an overview of what we learned from benchmarking funding mechanisms. We will then provide an overview of a potential funding pathway for the city to organize commercial collection and the key decisions required for implementation. Finally, we will summarize the recommended design choices and steps for implementation. First up, project purpose and approach. In 2015, the city established 3 primary zero waste goals. These include maintaining a 0% growth in the total waste stream from 2010 levels, diverting 50% of the citywide waste stream by 2020, and diverting 80% of the citywide waste stream by 2030. As an enterprise fund, solid waste and recycling is restricted from using revenue generated from customers to develop programs and provide services for non-customers. Non-customers include multi-unit buildings with more than 4 units, as well as commercial and industrial properties. To advance zero waste goals, the city needs a new, sustainable funding mechanism to support zero waste initiatives for multifamily and commercial entities within the city. Therefore, the question becomes, what mechanism can viably fund citywide commercial zero waste priorities? Next, we will summarize the approach we use to get from that question to a practical pathway forward. First, a survey was sent to benchmark cities to identify potentially viable zero waste funding mechanisms. Then, survey results were analyzed to determine the applicability of the benchmark community funding mechanisms to the City of Minneapolis before the most viable funding mechanism was identified. First, we looked outward and benchmarked funding mechanisms used by other communities. 8 communities with unique funding mechanisms for zero waste or general solid waste programs were identified, including Austin, Texas, Boulder, Colorado, Denver, Colorado, Fort Worth, Texas, Minneapolis, Minnesota, which was focused in on the Climate Legacy Initiative, which differs from the solid waste, Montgomery County, Ohio, New York City, New York, and Portland, Oregon. Through surveys and interviews, these communities shared the pros and cons of each funding mechanism and lessons learned since implementation. The project team summarized the funding mechanisms used by the benchmark communities into 8 categories: volume or tonnage-based licensing fees, revenue-based licensing fees, market-based franchise structures, tax line items, commercial collection and utility bill approaches, retail fees, and disposal surcharges. The applicability of each fee type to the city was evaluated. Several options were deemed viable, but an exclusive franchise fee through an organized commercial collection system was ultimately selected as the most applicable option for the city to pursue. Now we'll shift to what organized commercial collection is and what it looks like in practice. Under an organized commercial collection system, solid waste, recycling, and composting services could be available to all commercial entities in the city by one or more franchised haulers contracted by the city. This could provide the city with more data, oversight, and control over the commercial waste system and could help to reduce truck miles, emissions, traffic congestion, and pavement wear. Franchise fees could be negotiated with exclusive or zone franchise haulers. The revenue from franchise fees could flow through the collection contracts between the city and each franchise hauler and be used to fund commercial zero waste initiatives. Many other cities, including Austin, exclusively for their downtown district, and Los Angeles, have successfully implemented organized commercial collection systems. The City of New York is in the process of rolling out commercial waste zones. Planning their new system began in the early 2010s, and by the end of the second quarter of 2026, the city anticipates having 6 of their 20 zones completed. Should the city implement an organized commercial collection system, the revenue from franchise fees could be used to support zero waste programs and initiatives for multifamily, commercial, and institutional properties. Many of these are already outlined in the city's zero waste plan that was adopted in 2017. For example, funding could support data collection efforts, including waste sorts and baseline studies, the standardization of containers and signage, and the enforcement of waste-related ordinances. It could also be used to expand diversion and reuse programs for hard-to-manage materials, to increase multilingual outreach and technical assistance, and to build reporting and compliance systems for waste haulers and generators. If the city moves to organized commercial collection, the big question is not yes or no, it's how. The city would need to make 5 key policy decisions to design its organized collection system. These include determining the basis of the franchise fee, the responsible party for setting rates collected by haulers, the customer fee structure, the implementation model, and, if the city chooses to implement exclusive franchise zones, the basis of the franchise zones. The first policy decision would be choosing how the franchise fees are determined and set. The franchise fee may be a flat fee charged to all franchise haulers, a percentage of haulers' gross receipts, or a volume or tonnage-based fee. The study recommendation is a franchise fee based on a percentage of haulers' gross receipts. This is a popular and equitable model that promotes fairness among haulers of all sizes and provides a stable, predictable source of funding. The next policy decision would be to determine how customer rates charged by haulers are developed. The city may control and set customer rates, only be responsible for setting rate maximums, or the franchise haulers may have complete control over customer rates. The study recommendation is for the city to set customer rate maximums. This model, used in New York and Los Angeles, provides a ceiling for what haulers can charge. This protects customers while also providing the flexibility for customers and haulers to negotiate a competitive price. The city would then need to consider how rates are charged to customers by the haulers. All customers may be charged a flat fee, pay fees that vary by generation, or be charged by the size or taxable value of their property. The study recommendation is for customer fees to be by generation. This model incentivizes waste reduction and is also the most equitable system, as those who generate less waste will pay less. The city would then need to decide how an organized collection system would be implemented. There could either be exclusive haulers that can operate throughout the city, or the city may be split into franchise zones with one or more franchise haulers able to provide service in each zone. With 17 commercial haulers currently licensed in the city, the study recommendation is to implement franchise zones. This model provides opportunities for more haulers, including smaller local businesses, and helps to preserve existing relationships between customers and their service providers. If the city chooses to implement franchise zones, the basis of the franchise zones would also need to be decided. The study recommendation is for the franchise zones to be based on customer density. However, the franchise zones would likely initially be based on geographic boundaries due to a lack of customer density data. After enough data is collected, the city could then transition to franchise zones based on customer density to balance haulers' workloads. This model also gives the city the flexibility to select one or more haulers per zone to optimize efficiency and expand customer choice. Now we will pull the study recommendations together and walk through what the implementation could look like in Minneapolis. To summarize, our recommended framework for an organized commercial collection system is as follows. Franchise fees based on a percentage of gross receipts, city set rate maximums to protect customers and encourage negotiations between customers and haulers, customer rates structured around waste generation to support equity and waste reduction, and service zones that initially are based on geographic boundaries, but eventually transition to a customer density-based structure after enough data is collected. This framework encourages efficiency, stable funding, and a change in customer behavior to support zero waste goals. The implementation of this system is governed by state law and requires a thorough, multi-step process. This table outlines the 13 major steps, starting with receiving direction from the council and moving through hauler negotiations, public hearings, ordinance drafting, and eventually the service launch. It is important to note that this would be a long-term project. As you can see from the timeline, the total estimated time to full implementation is approximately 9 years. This deliberate, phased approach is designed to ensure a smooth and successful transition for haulers and their customers. While the requirements of Minnesota Statute Chapter 115A.94 are unique to the state, it has been a multi-year process for all communities throughout the country who have implemented organized commercial collection systems. Finally, the program could include a planned audit or review cycle starting around year 3 of operation, so the city could adjust based on real performance and outcomes. To summarize, implementing an organized commercial collection system could provide many benefits for the city, including stable, ongoing funding for zero waste initiatives, greater control over solid waste services provided to multifamily, commercial, and institutional properties, as well as the data needed for the city to develop impactful zero waste programming. The implementation process would be a long, multi-year process in order to comply with state statute and meaningfully engage with stakeholders throughout the city. Per state statute, a solid waste collection options committee would need to be formed within the first year of the process. This committee would include licensed haulers, city staff, business owners, and other interested parties at the city's discretion and support an equitable implementation process. To close, organized commercial collection is a practical path to dedicated zero waste funding paired with a collection structure that reduces inefficiency and improves accountability. Thank you for your time. We're open for questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I will see if there's anyone in queue. I would just make some brief comments. I put myself in queue. Really excited to see this. I know this has been, as was highlighted, a multi-year effort actually stemming from the Betsy Hodges administration, who really took leadership on getting Minneapolis to be part of this national movement towards moving towards zero waste, and knowing in the current climate where we're talking about what is the future of the HERC incinerator, how Minneapolis needs to be very serious in our approach towards diverting waste, especially the variety of waste that we're emitting. A lot of it is compost based and those things. For us to get a concrete plan that we can actually enact to meet those 2030 goals that we're currently not on track because we haven't had a basis of funding. So this gives us a clearer roadmap on how to move this work forward. I know you mentioned in the presentation also around the timeline being, estimate of 9 years. And in the report, you also note that this is a conservative timeline. And I want to note we can, as we've done with a variety of initiatives, to go as fast or as slow as we want, depending on the will of this body. And I will hope is the will of this body, especially based on the resolutions that we've made and plans that we've made in a commitment towards meeting a zero waste future, that we would not take nearly a decade to get this going when it's taken us nearly a decade just to even get this type of report and evaluation in front of us. So I'm excited. I will already name this is going to be a piece of or one of the priorities that I'm bringing forward as part of our work plan, because I really want to see us actually make tremendous strides in progress, and we literally have the blueprint in front of us to do so. So I'm really excited to have this around also figuring out a revenue generator that is going to be sustainable in helping us reach these goals. So I'm so excited for this committee to take leadership and take ownership of getting some of those things done, and ideally, again, not within a decade, because most of us might not even be here by then. So I would love to get a head start on that, and I see some other folks in queue. I'll move it next to Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. I know that this has been, that solid waste has been in this conversation before, that it has been a goal of solid waste is one way to address our approach to zero waste. And we've been at it a long time. I very much would like to make it easier for business properties, for commercial properties to reduce waste and do a better job, or some of them even start composting and recycling. This isn't the first time we've attempted to look at it. The barriers that have been involved in the past at times seemed insurmountable in a way because of the way our city was built and how collection would work. Did you dive deeply into how the mechanics of collection would work? Or is that part of this timeline process, is to sort of standardize that and have a truck or a vehicle that would be able to pick things up in a more standard way?
A big part of the process would be that stakeholder engagement with the haulers, and so discussing specifically with them about, what scaling up of that collection would look like, or any part of that collection. So I think really just engaging all of the important parties is really a huge and important part of this entire process.
Mm-hmm. And we have had our existing hauler relationships in to discuss how they might build out such a function, but also had vendors that would be new to the city in for sort of discussions about it. I also think an added benefit is it would bring down the cost, hopefully, for the business customer, ultimately, right? Because we'd have a centralized way to do that. Well, also, do you really think that this would ultimately create a revenue source for our Climate Legacy Initiative? Is that what your analysis has shown, or does this end up being more of a cost-neutral type endeavor? Not cost-neutral in the reduction of waste and the carbon spend it takes to pick all of these up separately, but does it really create a revenue source for CLI?
We work with a lot of different cities, particularly with solid waste departments, who do have franchise fees in place and do generate quite a bit of revenue. A peer city that's equally as large as the city of Minneapolis generates about $10.5 million annually through franchise fees. So I think it's definitely, there's a big opportunity to generate quite a lot of revenue.
This is a new use for Minneapolis of this overall concept. It does seem like a big lift to implement, but you've sort of outlined that for us. I like the idea of the city having more oversight and influence of private collections too. Quite frankly, some of the livability concerns that we hear from neighbors around commercial areas are about how that waste gets picked up, or rather not, at times. I understand these are recommendations of a study, but I'd be interested in what our solid waste and recycling department feels about this and if this model is possible. And maybe that's a question, maybe if they're just receiving this information, that's a question for another time, but I see Nick, come on up. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Chair Wansley, Councilmember Palmisano. We do think this is a viable plan. I mean, it is going to take some time, but this is, from what we've seen across the country, a viable funding source to continue to drive zero waste and diversion policies to get us greener. So I think it is an extensive take on, and it's going to be a long project, but it's very doable in our eyes.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean, I think this is a way that can reduce our emissions and help with our waste reduction overall and less hauler traffic overall, and I would really encourage us exploring it further too. Thank you, and thank you for this presentation.
Awesome. I see Vice Chair Stevenson next.
Thank you. I don't necessarily know who would answer this question, but since I'm new, I was curious if somebody could answer why we only collect 1 to 4 unit buildings instead of commercial and multifamily?
It's been a long-standing policy because the commercial haulers had the large units before, and then we took over for the 4 unit and less because we could do it in a smaller scale, in a more practical way of hauling for them. Because it's all carted service rather than dumpster service for those smaller units.
Okay, so it was just an easier lift to make it.
That's correct.
Organized this way. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm interested. I'm glad to hear there's others interested in this. Most of our trash from the city comes from not 1 to 4 unit buildings, so this would be great.
Just double checking if anyone is in queue. Let me refresh. All right. Well, that is everyone. Again, thank you so much. Oh, wait, sorry. Back, Councilmember Palmisano.
Sorry. Councilmember Stevenson brings up a question, and I think I have seen this before. Are there some commercial buildings that choose to use our solid waste and do so because their needs for waste are pretty low and they use our carts and then contract with the city to pick them up?
Yes, Chair Wansley, Councilmember Palmisano, there are some units that use our compost services and can sign up for the organics, but not as far as anything over 4 units for trash does not come to us. So the vehicles you see servicing those accounts will be doing the organic service.
I see. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no one else in queue. Thank you again, staff, so much for this really thorough presentation. We look forward to working with you all on advancing some of the next steps you've articulated in your report and findings, but I will ask that our clerks receive and file that presentation. Our next item is our next item is a report related to the 2025 Transportation Action Plan, and also will be a status update. And staff has prepared a presentation for us, so I'll invite up Kelsey Vogt, Interim Transportation Planning Manager from our Public Works Department, to get us started. This is like the funnest part of presentations, just like, can I get the person's name right? So I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Wansley and members of the committee. Again, my name is Kelsey Vogt. I'm an interim planning manager in the Transportation Planning and Policy Program Division of Public Works. I'm here today to provide the 2025 Transportation Status Update for the group. A couple things that I'll cover, some background on the plan, what we typically report back on, why this report back is different as the status update, a few topic area highlights, and then next steps. On background, so the Transportation Action Plan is a 10-year action plan. It's to guide future planning, design, and implementation of transportation projects across all modes. It was adopted in December of 2020. It includes 8 topic areas, including walking and rolling, biking, transit, technology, freight, street operations, street design, and progress. There are 59 strategies included in the plan and 325 actions. The Minneapolis Transportation Action Plan is derived from the Minneapolis 2040 Comprehensive Plan. The Comprehensive Plan sets the vision for where we go with transportation in the city. The Minneapolis Transportation Action Plan sets the how for how we get there. A few things to be aware of with the Transportation Action Plan is that it's not fiscally constrained. When the plan was developed, it was intended to be an ambitious plan. It was not constrained by the funding and resources available to us at the time. We wanted to use the plan to be able to pursue opportunities beyond what we had identified and to be able to work with our partners as they bring forward projects as well, but know that the plan's actions were not fiscally constrained when they were put together. There are several different plans and policies that the Transportation Action Plan supports, including, as I said before, Minneapolis 2040, the Complete Streets Policy, which was last updated in 2021, the Vision Zero policy, which was adopted in 2017, and the latest climate equity plan. A brief overview of what the TAP actions look like. Again, there's more than 300 of them. They all follow this general format. They're housed within a chapter that's focused on a topic area. They are under a strategy, which is, in this case, identified in the colored bars. This is a strategy about street lighting. They all identify whether the action is a do action, which means that the city leads on it, or a support action, which is one that the city is led by other agencies and is supported by the city. They all include an anticipated time frame. So in the original Transportation Action Plan, there were 3 time frames, 2020 to 2023, 2024 to 2027, and then 2028 to 2030. There is a caveat included in the plan that the original time frames were our best guess. They were for planning purposes, and they could switch depending on changing conditions, partner support, staffing, funding levels, and unforeseen social or other circumstances. There are, in the actions, each of them have plan goals that are supported by the actions. They're further to the right, so this one's supported by safety, equity, and active partnerships. And then we assigned a difficulty to each. The difficulty was intended to also show how complex, which ones were more challenging, which ones took more partnership. There's a range of options for why a difficulty was assigned, but it helps identify some of the more challenging actions in the plan. Now, how we typically report back on the Transportation Action Plan, we come before this council every other year to report back on these 5 tracking indicators and 5 key metrics. That last update on these key indicators and metrics that are identified in the plan was in November 2024, which means we're coming up due again towards the end of this year. That commitment for that biennial report back is a commitment in the Transportation Action Plan, so it's identified through that body, or through that plan. And now what this is and why this TAP status update is different, this is an opportunity for us to take a closer look at the plan now that we're halfway through. The Transportation Action Plan is a 10-year plan. We hit 5 years at the end of 2025. So we're taking the opportunity to look at the actions that have been accomplished to date, share out the progress that we've made through those actions through the end of 2025. There are staff from across different divisions within Public Works. There are staff in other departments that are working on these actions. It's a multi-team effort to accomplish these actions. Just want to represent the vast amount of work that goes into working on these actions throughout the plan. We also want to make sure that our actions, as they were, aligned with policies and plans that have been adopted since the Transportation Action Plan was adopted in 2020. This body has done a lot of work since then and want it to be aligned with what's in the Transportation Action Plan to give the best guidance to our staff as they're working through those various actions. And then we also took the opportunity to look at the timeframes as they are in the plan and take really a critical look at them and try to be transparent and be realistic about what we're able to accomplish in the 10-year timeframe. There's a number of actions you'll see in the documents that you have today that are identified as having a new timeframe, which is 2030 plus. Those are actions where we see that they haven't made the same level of advancement that we would expect them to have seen by this point to be able to accomplish them in the 10-year timeframe. Some of those are reliant on technology advances. There's things like aerial delivery drones that we had actions on in the Transportation Action Plan. There are things like electric charging stations for freight vehicles where the industry just hasn't progressed in the same way that we thought it could have when we were trying to predict what could happen in 2020. So we want to be realistic about some of those. There are also some where there are changing conditions that staff are aware of, such as when we were looking at downtown in 2019, as we were putting together the plan, it's not the same downtown that we're looking at today. There's items like congestion pricing that were identified as an action to evaluate, which may not be the best use of time or resources for staff as we're thinking through what we really want to accomplish in this 10-year timeframe. So that was something else we looked at. Again, we are not looking to establish new policy through this plan. I don't think I've said that yet, but we're trying to reflect the policies and plans that have been adopted since the TAP and also be realistic about some of our timeframes and the actions where we've made progress. The process for putting together this status update, we had a core team from across Public Works. I said how many There's many staff that are working on these actions from across Public Works and other departments. We included CPED in this core team to make sure we are aligning on the actions that they're also working on. We had topic area workshops that allow staff to really dig into each of the actions and compile what's happened so far and figure out what's the next priority. We also took things through a TAP steering committee of Public Works leadership and planning, CPED planning. So just to go through again what's included in the scope, you have a red line document in your packet today, and the red text shows what has been updated through the status update. There are updates in the narrative to align with updated policies and plans that have been adopted since the 2020 TAP adoption. There are network maps that we've updated to align with things where infrastructure has been built, so we can represent that a planned bikeway is now an existing bikeway. There are map updates that we made to make the maps more easily understandable. Some of the maps had many layers, and so it was hard for staff to understand what's a transit priority versus what's a high-frequency network route in our maps. And so we tried to divide those maps out so they're in the plan still, but they're easier for staff to use the priority plans, priority network maps. And then we also, the bulk of the work, I should say, is in the actions. So the 325 actions, we now have status updates on each of those as to what progress has been made and where it is. Is it complete? Is it in progress, et cetera? And then we took a look at those timeframes. So what the actions look like in your packet today in the red line document, again, we have a new anticipated time frame if needed. So for this action, we did not need to change the time frame to reflect current planning. This one is one where there is a new status. We completed this action, so that shows in the red line packet. And then there's 3 other potential statuses that you'll also see successfully completed to date and ongoing, in progress, and then actions that haven't been started. And we want to be transparent about those that hadn't started as well. There are a couple sentences for each action called the significant milestone that describes what's been done on the action or why it hasn't been started, if it hasn't been started. And then there's a couple of them that we assigned a new difficulty as we got into looking at the actions. We said these are harder than we thought they were going to be and wanted to reflect that as well. A few topic area highlights just to go through of things that are in the plan to be aware of. I've got 1 or 2 for each chapter here. In the progress topic area, one big piece of work that came out of the Transportation Action Plan is the Racial Equity Framework for Transportation. That was adopted through this body in 2023. It provides more guidance for us on how to plan equitably across the city when we're thinking about transportation. There's new ways to measure transportation equity in that through our transportation equity priority areas. There's publicly available data and a dashboard where those items can be seen. So that's a big addition for our team. In the pedestrian topic area, we made a couple updates to the pedestrian priority network, and this network is a grid of streets that represent where people frequently walk. We use it to focus investments to improve ease, comfort, and safety of people walking across the city. The couple things that we updated are projects that have been either under construction or approved and are planning to be constructed soon. The new Nicollet Avenue is one where we added it to the PPN, or the Pedestrian Priority Network. It reconnects Nicollet Avenue from Lake to 29th, West River Parkway through the Upper Harbor Terminal site, and 21st Avenue for the Blue Line extension, where we shifted a lot of our pedestrian focus to align with the Blue Line's new route. And then the next updates or thing to share out today is the All Ages and Abilities Bikeway Network, or a AAA as it's called. This is a network of planned and existing bikeways. And the big changes that we made for this status update is that we looked at where there were planned bikeways that have been built out. So we updated the map to reflect that. The map had not been updated since 2020 when we created it, so it was lagging a bit behind. We added projects that have been approved that have planned bikeways, so we can show that those are coming, so we can plan around those. And then we made a couple of adjustments where there are projects that have relocated, a bikeway to a parallel corridor. One of these is, for instance, West Broadway had a bikeway identified as a upcoming or planned bikeway. With the Blue Line extension, that bikeway moves to 21st, and so we want to reflect that in our planning documents. a new map that we created to give some more information both for our staff and for the public is an existing bikeways map. So this shows where there are existing bikeways across the city. The AAA has both planned and existing, so it was difficult to use as a way to know where there's actually bike routes that you can take. So this is a new map that we created through this process. For the transit topic area, again, a little bit of map cleanup here to make things easier for staff to use. The transit priority network had several layers of information that was hard to kind of peel through as a staff member. So we simplified things to really prioritize what is clearly written out in the TAP as priorities. So the actions that were in the TAP in the maroon are now highlighted on the map itself. We also created a category to show where there are coverage and service types of actions. This was TAP Action 1.6, and so I wanted to highlight this specifically on the map so staff know how to prioritize those as we're thinking about projects. For the map, also similar to the bikeway, the PPN maps, we updated where there has been existing infrastructure built out. So, for example, the B line was shown as a future transit priority corridor. It's now shown as an existing transit priority corridor because it's been built. E-line is the same way. In the technology chapter, just one action to highlight is action 4.5. We've created a dashboard of scooter and bike share data. It's publicly available. You can see how many trips have been taken, where trips and when trips are most likely taken, so some information to share out on how those programs are going. On the freight topic area, there was an action in the Transportation Action Plan, Action 3.1, about adopting an update to the truck route network. We've worked closely with staff across Public Works to do an analysis of truck routes across the city and brought forward several changes to the truck route based on that analysis, looking at where there are truck routes that are parallel to existing truck routes and land uses that support not having truck routes on them. For example, residential corridors and street typologies that also go towards that effect. So a couple examples of routes that were removed through this process: Lyndale Avenue North, adjacent to I-94. I-94 carries a lot of truck traffic, doesn't need to necessarily be on Lyndale Avenue as a residential, more focused street. So we worked those updates through the council through a to-the-record letter process and have updated that map to reflect those. In the street operations topic area, there was an action to update the Complete Streets policy to incorporate micromobility, so scooters and bike shares, freight and green stormwater. That policy was updated in 2021. So the new modal triangle, which establishes a modal priority as we're thinking about projects, is on the screen and has been updated as of 2021. In the street design topic area, Action 1.1 described updating or creating a street design guide. This was something that was developed after the TAP. Because of that action, it was developed in 2021. It informs the planning and design of street projects to support these various things. Benefits for people walking, biking, taking transit, safety and traffic calming, more greening, street trees, green stormwater infrastructure. The guide is updated periodically as best practices come to light as we further develop the way that we design projects. But that is a resource that is used by staff. It is publicly available. The most exciting of the part of the update day potentially is that there is a new planning process beginning. The Metropolitan Council adopted a comprehensive regional plan in February 2025, which kicks off the comprehensive plan cycle. The city of Minneapolis will now need to develop an updated comprehensive policy. So Minneapolis 2040 is our current comprehensive plan. That plan work will be led by CPED, but we expect that there will be goals and policies or strategies on transportation in that, which will again set the vision for transportation in the city. With that will come an update to the Transportation Action Plan, an opportunity to build on information that's in the comprehensive plan, opportunity to create new policy, new actions, new strategies potentially, as we're thinking about the next iteration of the 10-year plan and the Transportation Action Plan itself. So there's more work to come on that, more to look forward to. Again, this update today is really just reflecting the work that's been done on the Transportation Action Plan and trying to reflect the plans and policies that have been adopted since it was completed in 2020 as a mid-year checkpoint, and look forward to the next iteration of the Transportation Action Plan. So that's all the material I have for you today. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much for that pretty extensive presentation, and also to Public Works staff for redlining that 300-page plus report. It's very extensive, so I really appreciate that. I look forward to continuing to dive deep into that over the next coming days to see what all has been done and then what's yet to come. But first, I see Councilmember Palmisano in queue.
Thank you, Ms. Vogt, for this presentation, but also this is just my sincere thanks to Public Works for making this a living document. I remember the construct of this Transportation Action Plan. It wasn't easy. We had community engagement sessions in every part of the city. I explicitly recall Deputy Director Hager at mine at the time in Lyndhurst Rec Center, where she was getting really harangued about our bicycle priority corridors and what that meant. I can tell by the look on her face, she also remembers it fondly. But really, I do think it's great when we take these large vision documents and we go back and we revisit them and we say, hey, we didn't really know what the impacts of something like a global health pandemic would bring to our city at that time, or other events in our city at that time. And it is just really nice and refreshing to see that there are tangible things in this document that we could reprioritize or refocus. And I am curious to that end, is this something where I see it's just receiving and filing a report? Is this something that we go back and readopt at some point? Or, and maybe that's not a question for you, but so much as for my committee members, how much has to change in a vision document and a strategic planning document over time before it kind of comes back for readoption? What you said, and if you could remind me of the timeline to come up with the next Transportation Action Plan, maybe that's where we should spend our time and focus.
Yeah, Chair Wansley, Council Member, the next planning process, the comprehensive plan is due at the end of 2028. So not far out from where we are today in the scheme of long-range planning. The schedule for the Transportation Action Plan updates still to be defined, but I would expect that it wouldn't be far beyond that.
Okay. Another piece is when we came up with this last Transportation Action Plan, I really feel like it was completely re-engineered from prior ones, that we really were like, it was newly comprehensive in a whole bunch of different ways. I say that without deep recollection of what existed before that. But do you already foresee any major pieces coming with our next version of this? I saw technology mentioned in here, and I mean, just off the top of my head, from driverless vehicles to package delivery to these other kinds of needs in our environment, or that we foresee coming into our environment at some point. Those are things we would never have necessarily envisioned back when we adopted this. Are there others?
Chair Wansley, Council Member, there may be others. There may be others in the next couple years that come to light, right, that are themes that we'll want to carry through into the next Transportation Action Plan. I think the themes and the goals and the policies, the actions will come from the comprehensive plan, so we'll be looking closely to that and coordinating closely on what those overall foundational pieces are. But we think that we have good backbone with the current Transportation Action Plan.
Yeah. Thank you. This was great.
Next, I see Vice Chair Stevenson in queue.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I have an overarching question that we can dig into, but how are we doing on the plan?
Chair Wansley, Councilmember Stevenson, that's a great question. We've made a lot of progress on the plan, and our typical biennial report backs include a tally on how many are completed, in progress, still to be started. I don't have those numbers with me today, but we can pull those and report back. I would say that there is a significant amount of progress on our plan.
Mm-hmm. So one of the goals of the plan was to have three out of 5 or 3/4 of trips taken outside of a car. How are we doing on that goal?
Chair Wansley, Vice Chair Stevenson, great question. Also something else that we report out in those metrics with our biennial report back. I'll look to the crowd. I don't think that we have those data points for you today, but we can pull those in and provide them. They were last updated in November 2024, and it will be updated this fall.
Just
Okay.
before we move to your next question, Vice Chair Stevenson, do you want to note those for staff follow-up? That way the clerks can document them and
Yes, please.
get them
Thank
to
you.
staff. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, yes, please.
For both questions, I'm sorry.
How are we doing on the goal of
Yep.
3 out of 5 trips taken outside of a car?
And then you have one beforehand that you said you would follow up on too.
I think it was the number of action items that you had checked off.
Okay. Yep.
That one as well.
Thank you.
And those questions were leading to this question. I don't think we're close to 3 out of 5 trips taken outside of a car, not to downgrade the amount of the amazing progress we've made. But what do we need to get there?
Thank Chair Wansley, Vice Chair Stevenson. That's a great question, something we're constantly trying to figure out, right? The Transportation Action Plan outlines a number of actions that are intended to get us toward that goal. We're working on those. We're constantly working to get towards that 3
Okay.
to 5.
Well, I know that's a massive question that can't just be answered here. How do you get, an American city to completely shift the way that it moves itself around? But yeah, that's top of mind for me, and I know it's top of mind for lots of staff.
question.
So, thank you.
I see a priority coming from Vice Chair Stevenson. Director, sorry. Oh. Is that a huddle for a response or?
Chair Wansley, just one data point to share is that there was a question on the mode share. We won't have the updated mode share data until the fall, so we can report back on what we know so far, but it won't be as timely potentially as what you're looking for.
Okay.
That's great.
All right. I have myself in queue just actually in follow up to Councilmember Palmisano's question around the revamping process of the next transit action plan. And this is one where I think we're going to have to involve the city attorneys in. If some people can recall, last term we had a huge debate and conversation around the restructuring of plans due to government structure, where, again, what I love most about the transportation action plans is very clear of what's in kind of the administration's wheelhouse, or our legislative action steps. And from my understanding, there's, based off of the city attorney's advice, that we're going to have to adjust how we do these type of plans now, and how we're incorporating legislative feedback or policy integration into these plans. Big question mark when we have all those coming up, as you mentioned, of like Imagine 2050 and then this. So this is one where the city attorney's office is going to have to be deeply involved in to help us figure out how best we can continue making sure that not only we use oversight, but also bring our policy expertise in partnership with the administration on reaching these goals in our next iteration of this plan. So I did want to flag that. That likely will be a conversation that probably Public Works and our committee leadership will have with the city attorneys to try to get ahead of some of those questions and concerns and how to best prep. So I did want to flag that because I know we all would like to be heavily engaged and involved, as was the previous president. So just wanted to flag that. I'm not seeing anyone else in queue. No, okay. Not seeing anyone else in queue, so with that, we'll ask the clerks to file that presentation. And with that, everyone, we've concluded all business today, so we can adjourn this meeting and get on with the rest of our Thursday. All right, bye.
Not even enough to twist it.
I was